Thanks again for joining us at Youthology. We are excited about this week's topic. Every week we deal with topics and issues that concern you, and I'm sure that if you just do a little search right here on the site for the issue or the topic that you need help with, we can help you. So I want to talk about crisis this week. How do we prepare for a crisis in Next Gen ministry? Listen, crisis will come to all of us at some point. So preparing for crisis is an important part of our response when it comes. One of the characteristic traits of Gen Z is they are labeled as the terror generation. I mean, when you look at Gen Z and really Alpha Gen coming right up behind them, you see a lot of things that are concerning. It's been a very dramatic generational set. I mean, listen, from 9/11, the economic crash, the social media tidal wave, the racial tensions, the sexual revolution, COVID, and the more recent division in our government. Listen, there has been no shortage of drama and crisis in this new millennium. And our young people are being raised in this. So in order to prepare a next gen ministry response to crisis, the first step is always being proactive. So here's my ideal solution. Let's talk about the spiritual and the practical side of preparing for a crisis. We should be preparing our leadership, our adult leaders and our student leaders on how to respond when crisis comes. The kind of leadership that we have is going to help guide a youth ministry, a children's ministry, maybe even young adult ministry. It will help our ministries respond before the crisis happens if we can train them properly. Whether we are talking about a gun or weapon incident, a crisis of natural disaster or a fire, or an accident that occurs in one of the family members of the Next Gen ministry, there are a lot of different things that can take place that will constitute a crisis. But what are we going to do about that? How can we take this evil, this hardship, or this difficulty and turn it for good? Well, I believe it takes two things: a spiritual makeup or a spiritual framework to help with our emotional quotient, and a practical help or framework to help with our spiritual quotient, right? How are we going to do this emotionally? How are we going to walk through this spiritually? Depending on the kind of training that we bring to our youth ministry. We must build a framework that helps our young people deal with hardship and difficulty or suffering or crisis. They're just not used to that. And with this lack of spirituality and theology in a generation, oftentimes a crisis can stir the crowd and can move the people. A crisis can be a negative thing, and our young people don't know how to respond in that kind of a situation. And so we have to have the spiritual and the practical discussion to prepare Gen Z and Alpha Gen sets in a ministry setting for when crisis comes their way. So here are several spiritual principles that must become a part of the culture of your Next Gen ministry before crisis happens. Number one, God is in the midst of crisis. And He doesn't leave us alone. Nothing is happening that God does not see. So understand this, that God does His greatest work in the midst of our greatest need. Number two, crisis creates a culture of maturity. I know you might be thinking, whoa, I don't know about that with me, but crisis can actually create spiritual growth in us. It forms strength in us. Resistance and pain and hardship are actually builders. Number three, crisis creates alternative thinking. We have to change our mindset when it comes to crisis. What we see as evil, God can turn for good. When crisis comes, we must capitalize on it and use it with a different mindset. Use crisis for spiritual growth, right? Number 4, crisis creates a culture of conversation. I love this. Ask teens, ask them questions, get them talking. When crisis happens, we have to allow them not to isolate, right? Or to be silent, but to speak up. How are you feeling? How has this changed your life? What are you thinking? What are solutions to what's going on? Hey, number 5, crisis actually creates unity and a family atmosphere. Build a culture of family ahead of time, and when crisis takes place, the family will be drawn together. The youth will be drawn together, and it's much easier to deal with crisis when we have a culture of unity. And so these are the kind of things that we must train our adult and student leaders, those teams. We have to train them in this spiritual discussions. And then, secondly, we need to have the practical discussion. The spirituality is great. It helps us determine our intelligence quotient, right? Our spiritual response to this. But what about the practical side or the practical aspect of crisis when it happens around us? Do we have a format, a framework for a response to crisis? No matter the situation, leadership is critical to handling an emergency situation. So we must have proactive organizational planning to assure appropriate responses to crisis. So number 1, leaders must be trained in basic response principles. Bring in outside training such as police and fire, or EMT, or even DRT, disaster response teams. Number 2, understanding evacuation routes and sheltering locations is critical for a quick and safe response. Number 4, having an overall organizational plan at every level, the pastoral team, the board, elders, department leaders, security teams, everybody working in sync and in unity. Number 5, corporate communication and execution of the plan. We must have a response come from the whole, right? Response systems that can make quick and appropriate responses in a crisis situation. And then finally, ongoing training. A couple of times a year or quarterly, we are taking our teams through crisis training, right? Nobody wants this to happen, but if we're prepared for this, we can minimize the fallout and we can minimize the kind of things that are happening around us that are negative, and we can bring more control into a crisis situation. These spiritual and practical applications, frameworks, training will assure your ministry and your organization that we are taking advantage of crisis when it happens. We can assure the families who trust us with students. We can assure the students and our leaders who are a part of the ministry that through our preparation, we are prepared to handle anything that comes our way. Listen, these are simple, spiritual and practical things. They are mindsets, right, and actions. How am I going to deal with it as a spiritual leader? What is my response to set the tone in the room when crisis happens? Who's going to handle the announcement? Who's going to go to the mic? Who's going to be at the exit doors, right? All of these kind of things. So it's both a spiritual response and the practical response. Who's going to be on the mic? Who's going to bring the announcement? Who will be at the doors? Begin the communication to the rest of the building or communication to parents, right? So all of these things we need to make sure that we are on top of, both the spiritual and the practical. So take a look at this. I'm sure it's going to help you as you read over this and look at it. And if you go to the website, youthology.com. I'm going to put some links in there and some more training information resources for you, okay? We just kind of laid out the spiritual and the practical and how you can respond, but you'll see more if you just go to the website. We've got some more resources there that will help you become a more prepared next-gen ministry when it comes to crisis.